Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So, chapter 880 of One Piece is out. So if you haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. Holy damn, the cliffhanger at the end of this one. Did you guys see what I saw? And if so, please pinch me. Because Big Mom might have just displayed the most broken ability you could possibly have as a pirate, as a warrior of the sea. Sentient Ocean, guys, is on a whole nother level. But anyway, guys, there's quite a lot to talk about, so let's do this sequentially. Let's start from the beginning. And I actually want to talk about the cover story, which I haven't talked about in several weeks because it finally interests me some. So, in Sai's cover story, we learned that he was supposed to get married to pretty much the strongest woman on the planet. And we kind of felt bad for her because Sai basically dipped out on her for, you know, the maid and baby 5. But this chapter, we learned that whatever feelings that we had were very, very misplaced. Because this woman has 25 husbands already. So I'm really unsure, or maybe I'm very sure, that she doesn't really need one more. But that's not what really interests me. What interests me is the appearance of her husbands. I was looking at them and it reminded me of someone. It reminded me of Jabra from CP9. And so the way Jabra was dressed already and his general appearance, I felt as though it was pretty easy to suspect that he might be from Kano Kuni, the same place that Sai and Don Chinjiao are from, basically the country which represents China and is influenced by Chinese culture. Now, I understand that just because of the way he dressed doesn't make him also a husband of this woman, but it makes me wonder. And also, I'm really curious about this as well, which is that Sai and the Don Chinjiao family lead the Happo Navy of Kano Kuni. And so this woman, for some reason, has 25 husbands, going on almost 26 if she had married Don Sai. Makes me wonder if she's some kind of royalty of Kano. It really seems to me to be more like a practice that someone of royal blood would do, rather than just a commoner, or, you know, like a wealthy merchant or something like that. And if that were to be the case, then it seems as though Sai just turned down the potential of becoming royalty himself and increasing the power of the Happo Navy, for the sake of Baby 5. He might also have made a powerful enemy. Now keep in mind, guys, this is just speculation, but this whole situation seems very interesting to me. Now going into the chapter itself, it started off with Pudding Chiffon and Sanji heading towards Chocolate Town, arriving, and eventually beginning to make the cake. And I'm really curious what you think, because leading up to this, I heard nothing but disparaging remarks about this entire plot setup, but I found myself, as I was reading this, actually getting a bit hyped about cooking feats. Maybe I'm alone here, maybe not. Share your thoughts. But anyway, Puddin being a boss, in this last chapter, starting off with excellent lying skills, leading into excellent memory manipulation skills, and finally, her head caught fire, and that scene was fucking hilarious. Also, a low-key middle finger was spotted. I'm not sure why that was in there, but as soon as I read it, I might have lost it. Son. But there is a line from Pudding that seems really interesting to me. She says this: "We're putting our lives in line by baking this cake. It will determine the fate of this country. We need to be completely focused. Therefore, while the cake is being made, nobody should come into the factory. No matter who shows up, do not let them look inside." I don't know about you guys, but doesn't this sort of suggest that someone will eventually arrive? That's the impression that I got from this line, like somebody's going to come, and when they do, don't inform them of what's going on inside. It's very curious to me because there's really nothing that suggests that anyone was going to follow Pudding and Sanji, etc. And also, Oda, all he really needed to say here was that none of you guys that are present or anyone currently on this island should look inside because we need to stay focused. But no, if anyone were to arrive. Interesting. The other thing that really stood out to me with the scene in the kitchen making the cake is that Sanji pretty much confirmed what our thoughts were. He has a secret ingredient which he will add into the cake that will show others the ultimate potential of sweetness. And then he later called it offensive cooking. And that's to differentiate offensive as in terrible, but offensive as in attack. So this is almost guaranteed to be something related to the attack cuisine that Sanji learned from the Okama. And so this is confirmation of what I was thinking several chapters ago and what many others were thinking, which is that Sanji would never poison a cake. Sanji is a chef and he respects food. So when he said that he might, knock Big Mom out with an amazing cake, he literally meant it in the sense that this cake is going to be so delicious that it might drive her into some sort of food coma or food ecstasy. And so from this point, we delved more into the Katakuri versus Luffy fight, which I'm actually going to skip the majority of for now, get back to it later. But essentially the idea is that there were other mirrors inside the Sunny that the pirates within the mirror world could take advantage of, and Luffy desperately was trying to tell Nami to destroy these mirrors. And as he was doing so, Big Mom appeared on a giant living wave. So there are 3 ways that we need to discuss this. First of all, we need to talk about it itself and just how strong it is. We also need to talk about it and ask the question of whether or not this is realistic. And third, we need to ask what will happen next. And so to start off with, guys, this ability is absurdly broken. Now, Whitebeard also had the ability to create tsunamis, so Big Mom sort of shares that capability as sort of like a Yonko level power, because on the ocean, having the ability to, in some way, drown your opponents, especially with devil fruits being so common amongst the strongest people in the New World, it's so useful. But what makes this even stronger than Whitebeard's ability is that this wave isn't just a wave, this wave is alive. The ocean itself is alive. If you are anything but the absolute strongest pirates on the ocean and you happen to encounter Big Mom sailing on the seas with her ocean homie trailing behind her, we'll call him Neptune for now, then you're done. You're just done. It's over. Also, I believe that the existence of this homie, specifically if it travels around with her while she sails, almost guarantees that Big Mom would never drown because it could save her. But it really doesn't seem like anyone really disagrees that this ability is overpowered and it's hacks. What most people disagree with, it seems like, is whether or not this ability is actually allowed based on the rules within the universe and how devil fruits interact with the ocean. And so I want to add perspective onto this. The ocean does not negate or cancel or stop devil fruit abilities. We know this for a fact because in the Arlong Park arc, Luffy was stuck underneath the water for a large chunk of that battle, and he was still made out of rubber. They specifically stretched out his head so that he could breathe, while his entire body was covered in water. This is the actual rule. When a devil fruit user comes in contact with the sea, they lose their energy. So basically, if Luffy or any other devil fruit user were to fall into the sea, they don't have the power, they don't have the energy necessary to get out, so they will sink to the bottom, and they cannot swim to safety. But that doesn't mean that their devil fruit abilities are in some way stopped by the ocean. And so this leads me into another point. This sea homie, Neptune, or whatever you want to call it, is not a devil fruit user. It is a homie. It is a bit of the ocean given human soul. We just don't know the rules that govern homies and the ocean, so this is a completely separate case. Big Mom herself is not in the ocean, she is riding the wave. So obviously if she fell in the ocean she would drown because she's a devil fruit user, but this homie is not. And lastly guys, if none of this beforehand persuaded you at all, the oceans surrounding Big Mom's territories are not normal oceans. They have rivers of juice and all sorts of weird things, so the actual nature of this ocean could in some way impact whether or not Big Mom is capable of animating it. So she can certainly animate food. If this ocean is more similar to food than it is the actual ocean, then perhaps Big Mom is actually able to animate the ocean surrounding her territory, but not every ocean. But yeah, moving on from this, let's talk about where it might go from here. And as you guys will know because of the video that I made semi-recently, I fully expected Big Mom to encounter the Straw Hat ship and encounter these Straw Hats. And I was looking for ways to do it, and Oda helped me out by allowing Big Mom to make a giant ass wave. And so my expectation before this, and even more so after this, is that Big Mom will see that the cake is not on the ship, attack Perospero, wherever he might be. I'm not certain if he's still on her shoulder or not, and then continue to sort of ravage everyone. I feel like the one thing that we can be certain of though is that the strats currently on board the Sunny will find a way to survive, and the Sunny itself should not end up getting destroyed, or at least destroyed fully. And so based on my understanding, Big Mom isn't really concerned with the strats. She wants to find the cake. That is her objective number one. And she thinks that the strats have it on their ship. That's the only place that it could be, given it wasn't on their person. And so with that being said, then she wouldn't really be interested in them all that much. She's more interested in the ship. So I wonder if it's going to go down like this. I wonder if the wave is actually going to sweep all the strats off of the ship. And then Jinbei, being a fishman, might help out to sort of rescue everyone in the ocean so that the devil fruit users don't drown. And then that's when Big Mom sort of captures the ship. But it really feels almost inevitable at this point in time that the strats aren't just going to be able to run away from her. Like, initially when I was reading the spoilers, it was just a giant wave, and so people speculated maybe all the fishmen sun pirates appear out of nowhere and sort of delay the wave so that the strats could escape. But with Big Mom riding on top of the wave, with a homie of the ocean itself, how can you possibly win? No amount of coup de pertes are going to save you indefinitely. So all Oda would be doing, it seems to me, is prolonging the inevitable by not having Big Mom capture the ship. But of course, given the premise that your heroes will escape, you need a way out. And so if they get captured by Big Mom with no means to defend themselves and no way to escape, how do they escape? Well, it has to be, if this ends up happening, Big Mom turning on her family and sort of ignoring the strats. It's the only way that it makes sense to me. And this was precisely as the rage was foreshadowed when we were first introduced to it at the beginning of Whole Cake Island. This rage is a rage which causes Big Mom to destroy her own country. I believe that was also even said in this chapter as sort of foreshadowing. Big Mom's going to destroy her own country. But anyway, those are just my thoughts, and you're welcome to disagree. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the Katakuri Luffy fight. I'm not gonna lie when I say that it was a bit disappointing that Luffy is still getting wrecked by Katakuri without actually having attempted Gear 4th yet. Like, he's fought him for a while now, obviously he hasn't attempted that form yet, you know what's going to happen, and Oda is basically writing it off for another chapter. So it felt like the majority of what was going on here was just filler to set up the dramatic moment at the end of this chapter. And so guys, I'm not gonna lie when I say that I don't think that this scene had really any importance. But if there was anything important that occurred, obviously the fight is already set up, so we don't really need anything else in regards to Luffy Katakuri, is if it might become important that there are other mirrors on the ship and that the strats won't be able to deal with them. Because if this detail isn't important, I'm very curious as to why it's in the story, if it was just arbitrarily placed there to increase the drama of the end scene. Because now that Big Mom is there, riding a giant wave, it doesn't matter what fodders appear from the mirror world, right? But anyway guys, not to disparage the chapter at all, because I thought that it was absolutely fantastic. The cooking feats were surprisingly just exciting. Again, I don't know if I'm alone here, but I got genuinely excited and hyped up when Sanji basically memorized the entire cake and could recognize all the ingredients based on their fragrance. That stuff is just, it was really dope to me. And obviously the end with Big Mom is incredibly hype. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you like this chapter or not, and if you notice anything that I may not have. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Subscribe to be notified for my future content, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.